Welcome back. This week we're going to go with my Honey Hole Leech. This is a single hooked pattern. I had a custom order from Washington. Lou Cragen asked me to do a single hook leech pattern in black, which is the color I prefer to tie most of the leeches in. This one I'm going to do in olive. It takes a little bit better of a picture and shows up a little bit better on camera. So I'm going to do this one in olive. But relatively new pattern. Like I said, it was an order. It was a special order for a pattern, and I tried a couple that I wasn't really crazy about, and then this one it just kind of took, and it finally gave me the overall profile that I was after. And took it down to the river, give it a quick swim, and everything is as advertised as far as what I envisioned and how it swims. So there's going to be a lot more of these coming here before too long. Then I have an articulated pattern on this that I would also like to do. But without any further rambling, I'm just going to jump right into the tying on this one. I have to start an MFC 7050 size 1, and this is a brass gold bead. Anytime you see me tie with beads, whether it's tungsten, brass, Coneheads, nymphs, I'm always going to put a little bit of brass or lead wire in here to shore up and stabilize that cone. If not, it's going to wind up traveling all over the place on you. So with this, I have 4 wraps at 35 thousandths wire. Sounds like the boys are out there flying around. Got the choppers going above. So we got 4 wraps at 35 thousandths. Whether it's brass, whether it's tungsten, I stick with the same 35 thousandths on this. Coming right over the house. And I'm just going to throw a quick dab of zap on there and push that all the way up to where it's snug up against that cone. That's just going to shore this up. It's not going to roll around on me or anything. And then I'm going to start the gel spun. Get a nice thread base right in front of that lead wire. We got the chopper going. I got Knox chewing on rawhides. No distractions at all in this video. It's so nice when it's peaceful. Alright, so like I said, I'm just getting a little bit of thread through there. I'm going to shore up that lead wire, and then I'm going to stop my thread at about a quarter of an inch away from the point of the hook. Now like I said, I'm going to do this one in olive. This is an olive brown, and I'm going to take 1 plume of Marabou, and this is going to be Palmered wraps. There's just something about the way Palmered wraps breathe in the water as opposed to stacked. I just like this so much more, and especially with a leech imitation, it's going to slender down more toward the back. But I'm going to do some things in the middle that's going to allow this to have more of a leech profile than some of the other patterns that I tie. So, like I said, we're going to palmer this one, and this is just about perfect. You can see this is really nice and webby Marabou right here, really nice and webby. So this is going to give me the nice look that I'm after, and it's not going to be real sparse. I'm doing these with dubbing brushes, with the Marabou brushes now too. This one's pretty close to yeah, that plume right there is going to be pretty close to a brush of Marabou as far as thickness and density of the fibers. So now I'm just going to pick these out as best as I can, and I'm going to work my way forward on this. So I'm going to wind up stopping just shy of where I tied this in. You can see it's going to bring that nice palmered wrap of Marabou on back. Now this thing, it's on a size 1 hook, but with the palmer going back there, this thing's going to wind up close to 3.5, 4 inches. It's a pretty decent sized fly. But most of the leeches that you see out there, they're not as small as what you typically would think of as a leech. Heck, some of the lakes and everything up Canada way, and they're documented being almost up to a foot long. I mean, that's a little bit on the that's a lot on the big side, but you can get as big as you want on these to imitate your local waters, whatever it may be that you're seeing frequently. But this one, like I said, it's going to be around 3.5 to 4 inches. And then I'm going to take some just yellow wire here. I'm going to throw this in, and I'm going to take this, leave a good sized tag on this wire, run it up to the front, and then just double it over. That way your wire's going to be nice and secure for you. Now the next step on this, I'm going to take a quick dubbing loop. I'm going to work this to the back, and I'm going to stop right in front of where I left off with that lead wire. I'm going to grab my dubbing loop tool here, a half hitch, then I'm going to load this loop up with some olive brown ice dub. There's the package right there. We're just going to throw a quick loop together, run this up to the front, keep this relatively loose. I don't want this to be just so compact that you wind up seeing different segmentation and everything in there. I want it to kind of blend together. So I'm going to keep those wraps pretty loose. And I got a little bit extra on there, but that's alright. It's better to have extra than not enough. I'll just cut that loop out. And then I'm going to find a good Schlappen feather. This is just Sculpin olive dyed, or grizzly dyed Sculpin olive. And I want to find a good feather here. This one looks pretty solid. Find the natural bend in this just by holding both ends, kind of pushing together, and that'll give you a good starting point. You can see where that bends. Now I'm going to go back to here, and it starts getting really rigid. So right before I start seeing the real rigid portion of this, I'm going to take this and just peel it right at that section, and all the rest of that's just going to go in the trash. This is going to be the portion that I'm going to have in the fly. If you go with a section that's too rigid, you're going to wind up seeing that stem split, and then there's going to be a chance that it's just going to unravel on you. Alright, we'll half hitch again. Get that in the vise, and then I'm going to throw this nice even wraps all the way back. Get about 5 or 6 good wraps in there. You can see that nice prop that we have for our next set of Marabou that we're going to palmer over there. And that's done for a reason, really. I mean, when you look at a leech, let me get this counter wrapped before I start talking about the leeches. When you look at a leech, it kind of has, well, there's so many different species and so many different looks and types, but the majority of the ones that I see, they have this really slender back section, which this is going to imitate right here, and then they have kind of a humped up body in the center, and then it gets slender again toward the front. So what this is going to do is act as a prop, and it's going to keep my center section a little bit thicker than the rest of the fly, or than the front and back of the fly, I should say. So after I counter wrap that, I'm going to take this out, and if you've done everything right now, by the time you get to the front where you left off with your material and where you left off with your lead wire should be the same thickness throughout here, so you don't have like a big bump in between the lead wire and where you left off with your body. So now I'm going to grab one more plume of Marabou. I want to find something along the same thickness, if not maybe a little bit webbier than what I used on the back. And I'm pretty happy with that one. I'm just going to take that out. And ideally I want to get about 4 to 6 wraps right in front of one another, going right up to that cone. So now I'm just going to take, there's one, and as you're doing this, make sure you pick out all of your fibers. 2. Pick your fibers out, move them to the back. Probably be a place where the rotary function works against you slightly, but I like it too much. Now I'm going to get one more wrap out of there, get whatever remaining fibers I can possibly get out of that. So I only wound up with 4. I would like to add something with a little bit more thickness to it, or a little bit more length to it. This is going to work good because it lines up pretty close to the front of that cone. I'm going to grab my bodkin now. I'm just going to pick out whatever I can here. Didn't have a whole lot trapped, so we're in pretty good shape. And I'm just going to advance back here and move these Marabou fibers just slightly back to where it's a real sleek look on that back section. But like I said, because that Schlappen is underneath there, it's not going to allow this to completely collapse. So there's going to be that little bit of a bump in the center, and then it's going to be sleek in the front and back, because this in the back right here, once it's wet, I mean, it's going to be down to about nothing. But that bump's still going to be in the center, and it's going to give you that overall profile that you're after. Now the last thing that I'm going to do to finish this fly up is I'm going to go back to my ice dub. Do a quick dubbing loop. Get some of those wild fibers out of the way. Get the tool in place, half hitch. Get that in the cradle. Now before I start spinning this loop, because you're going to have a tendency to want to catch all of this stuff, I'm just going to take the straw, wet my fingers real quick, take the straw right over the top of this and just get it out of your way. That way when you're spinning this loop, you're not going to catch any of that stuff and it winds up in your whip finish or what have you. So now we got a nice clean area to work with. I'm going to take a little bit extra on this. I want it to line up with about the height of my bead, but I also want it to sink back in because there's just a little bit of space back there that you'll see when you're tying these. I know the camera can't pick it up. There's a little bit of space back there that's just empty. And with this little bit of extra, once you get really close to that cone head, you can pull in and you can watch these fibers just kind of suck into the cone. That's just going to reassure it a little bit more. It's going to help, or it's going to basically do the same job that lead wire's doing, and it's just going to help that lead wire slightly. So now that we have that, we're going to take and finish this. Got a little quick whip finish. Peel our straw off, and there you have it. Once this gets wet, like I was saying, you have that nice section up front with this ice dub that is just kind of sleek back. This back section is going to have a nice sleek tail, but there's still going to be that bump in the center. It's going to give you that nice overall leech pattern. Very simple pattern, very easy to tie, very quick. But like I said, seeing it in the water, I was sold. I was sold on it. This is going to be a good winter pattern here for us this year. But questions or comments, as always, on this one, leave them with me and I'll get back to you. But thanks as always for watching, and we'll catch you next week.